So I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Santa Fe County Planning Commission for February 20th, 2025. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Here.
Here.
Here. Thank you. Please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments?
Chair, Commissioners, we are asking to remove item A under consent to new business. The final order was not unanimously voted on, and so it was inadvertently put into consent agenda.
Thank you very much. So we'll move 2A to be the new 4A. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I move that motion.
May I have a second? Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. The first item, and I'm sorry, I said 2A. I was mistaken. It's really 3A. So now let's move to 2A, approval of the minutes. So this is to request approval of the January 16th, 2025 special meeting minutes of the Planning Commission. May I have a motion? Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Now we'll go to the new 4A, which is a request, which is case number 24-5120, Annette Montoya, variance of density. And so, staff, do you want to present on this item?
There's really nothing to present. We gave you a handout copy this morning. There were some minor changes requested by the legal department, and so that is the final order with legal approval. The vote was 5-2 on the initial order, and we are asking that you approve the final order as written.
Thank you very much. May I get a motion to approve the final order in the form of the handout we just received for case number 24-5120?
Mr. Chair, can I just, what were the changes, or what did legal recommend?
There was very little of substance, Commissioner Trujillo. Mostly non-substantive and clarifications, quite honestly.
Okay.
Nothing major. Nothing that we would consider of substance, that's correct.
Anyone move?
I'll move to approve for 5120.
Final order.
Final order as amended.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That final order motion is approved. Next on the agenda, we have case 24-5310, a Christine Stryker variance.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Planning Commission. My name is Maggie Valdez. I'm a Development Review Specialist Senior. Today I come before you with case number 24-5310, Christine Stryker variance. Christine Stryker, applicant, requests a variance of Chapter 8, Table 8-9, Dimensional Standards Residential Fringe, RES to allow 3 primary residents on a parcel of land consisting of 5.033 acres. The subject property lies within the RESF zoning district, which allows for 1 dwelling per 5 acres. The property is located at 23 Saddle Road, SDA 2, Commission District 4. History. The property currently has a single-family residence, which the applicant resides in, and the residence is connected to Sunsilt Hill water and contains its own septic system. The property also contains an unpermitted 2-story duplex, which the applicant utilizes as her 2 short-term rentals. The duplex has its own septic system and utilizes Sunlit Hills water. The first story of the duplex has already been granted temporary approval for a short-term rental. The first story and second story of the 2-story duplex are both 648 square feet, heated. Each level of the 2-story duplex contains a kitchen area, 1 bedroom area, 1 living area, and 1 bathroom. Summary. The applicant is requesting a variance of Table 8-9 dimensional standards to allow a residence and a 2-story duplex that consists of 2 separate apartments on the property for a total square footage of 1,400. The single-family home is 1309 square feet, and the property lies within the Residential Fringe Zoning District, RESF, within the Sunlit Hills area. The RESF district may be comprised of a variety of residential lot size, clustered housing, and community open spaces, and can include limited agricultural use accessory to residential use. The applicant state, this is a request to allow 2 guest houses in a separate 2-story residence at our property at 23 Saddle Road, Santa Fe, New Mexico. The building is already there and nothing new will be constructed. The residence has 2 guest houses, 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. In response to section 4.9.7.4, the applicant has addressed the variance criteria as followed, and staff has responded to the applicant's comments. Building and Development Services staff has conducted a site inspection on the property. Building and Development Service staff reviewed the variance application for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and found that the facts presented do not support the request for a variance to allow 3 dwelling units on 5.033 acres. Specifically, staff found that the structure was constructed without permits. If the applicants would have consulted with staff prior to building the structure, staff would have advised the applicant of the density requirements, thus avoiding this situation entirely. Hearing Office Recommendation. On January 9, 2025, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and conclusion of law, a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommends that the application be denied. Subject to maintaining the density requirements of the SLDC is important in observing the spirit of the code and increasing the density allowed by GAR. Recommendations. Staff recommends denial of the variance request to allow an existing unpermitted structure dwelling. The applicant's request for a variance does not meet the criteria of variance set forth in the SLDCs. If the Planning Commission recommends approval of this variance to allow an existing accessory dwelling, staff recommends the following. Mr. Chair, Commission, may I enter the conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. This report and the exhibits listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record. Mr. Chair, Commission, I stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Carl?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Valdez, thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
So if I understand this correctly, the main house, or the main residence, was built with a permit, and the two-story structure with the two apartments or short-term rentals was built without a permit, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And was there a date established as far as when that second structure was built?
So when we looked at all of that stuff, we couldn't find no permits for that area. Ms. Stryker bought the home and the apartment with the garage the way it was at the time. So when she wanted to apply for a rental, she couldn't do it because we saw that, you know, it's not allowed in that area. So when I pulled permits and stuff, we couldn't find the permit for that area.
Okay.
Nothing was permitted. A lot of the air in that area, a lot of it wasn't even permitted. We couldn't find anything. I don't know how to, maybe if I can get some help from somebody, because it was back. I
Chair,
can't even-
Commissioners, I believe that the structure did not start off life as a duplex. I believe that it started off as a garage and maybe like a loft, a storage area, and then it was converted at some point in time. So the original structure might have had a permit, but the renovations to it were not permitted that we can locate. And that's what brought it in. She came in to get in compliance with the STR, and according to the SLDC, ADUs are not allowed to be 2 stories. So therefore, her only option is to get a density variance allowing another primary structure that is 2 stories tall.
So, Mr. Chair and Ms. Valdez, so if I read it correctly, she has been approved for a short-term rental on the bottom 1 level of the 2 levels, is that correct?
I believe that is correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so, in Mr. Chair and Ms. Valdez, so maybe it's a question for the applicant, but it sounds like she purchased the property, I don't know the year, but I'll ask her the year of when she purchased the property. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Do any other commissioners have questions? Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for Ms. Valdez. That's, sorry. So, as Mr. Yutzi had mentioned, there's a height limitation for in code 10.4.23 for that an accessory dwelling unit, if I understand correctly, shouldn't exceed 1 story in height.
Yes, sir.
And this structure is 2 stories. So I'm just curious, you may not be able to answer this, why the accessory dwelling unit was approved initially.
Chair, Commissioners, I do not believe that it was approved as an accessory dwelling unit. I believe it was approved as possibly a garage with a loft over the top that was not a livable space. And then at some point in time, it was converted into livable space as an ADU, which wasn't a legal conversion because at the time of the permit was pulled, they would have been told that it exceeds the height limit of ADUs.
Okay. So the temporary approval that was granted for the short-term rental, how temporary is that, or is that?
It usually goes for about a year. We work with them while they are trying to get in compliance. The temporary licenses are issued to people who are going through the process to become into compliance.
Okay. Okay. And in your view, that structure being 2-story isn't an impediment to that unit being in compliance?
I do not see it as an impediment, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners?
I've got a question, Mr. Chair. You know, I read in the material that the main residence is about 1,300 square feet. And counting the 2 apartments or the duplex, that is over 1,300 square feet. So, I mean, is that a code violation there according to that area on the accessible dwelling units? Can't be more than the primary residence? Is that what I read in the book?
Chair, Commissioners, that's the reason they're coming for a density variance, is the density variance allows them to have another dwelling unit where the square footage is not regulated. Yes, The regulations for an auxiliary dwelling unit ADU are 50% of the main dwelling square footage up to, I believe it's 1,500 square feet.
And the other question I had is I read that they have 3 dwelling units on that property, counting the duplex. The duplex counts for 2, and then the primary residence. So is that what they're asking also for us to approve? 3 units? Or can we just say only 2 units are allowed? Comply with the code.
So it would be 2 dwelling units, additional dwelling units on the property for a total of 3 dwelling units on the property.
And the 2 stories is in violation. They're not allowed to have a 2-story.
Under the ADU standards, that's the reason they are coming for the variance for density bonus to allow them another essentially primary dwelling unit, yes.
And what do they do? Can they still have 3 units, or do they have to, the 2-story structure, does that have to be reverted to 1 unit?
If the variance is approved the way it is proposed, you would allow her to have 2 dwelling units for a total of 3 on the property. So the main house and then the duplex would be 2 units for a total of 3 units on the property.
And also, the density, the accessory dwelling units is equal to the size of the primary residence. That's also what they're coming for?
They're not really coming for a variance on that. That is an ADU requirement. They're not coming trying to get this permit as an ADU. They're trying to get it permitted as a dwelling unit. It's not coming as an auxiliary dwelling unit. It's coming as a density variance to allow another home essentially on the property.
Okay, not an accessory, but
Yes.
another residence on the
Yes.
property.
Yes.
Equal to the primary.
Yes.
Okay, I understand that now. It's a little clearer.
I have a question.
Yes, Wendy.
So I have a question on that. So if we said that there can only be 2 dwelling units, so would that mean that the second story would have to be converted outside of a dwelling unit into something else?
If you approved it as 2 dwelling units, then yes, it would be one of the stories would have to go because that is considered a 3rd dwelling unit.
So that's the issue, is the dwelling unit. It could be
Yes.
something else, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, thanks.
So, Mr. Chair, on,
Vice Chair.
on that point, what prevents an individual to come in and say the main house is this 2-story home and the accessory dwelling is the smaller one, the smaller unit? Is there anything in code that prevents that? I mean,
It
at
would-
that point, they would be just approving.
It would be the square footage. So in order for that to work, you would have to have the 2-story one would have to be, double her square footage.
So-
And so the square footages don't line up.
But either way, with this variance, as we're here to judge it today, it's not going to meet that anyhow. What I'm
Yes, we have several applicants who come in and they have one home and they want to build a larger home on their property. And so their original home actually will convert into the ADU for their property because their new home is big enough and the original home is under the square footage allotment.
Any additional questions for staff? Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I may. So you may have explained it correctly. I'm just trying to process it. So this request is for approval of a density variance for an accessory dwelling unit. Is it not, or is it just a separate house if it's
It is a variance for a density it's a density variance to allow 2 additional dwelling units. In most incidences, ADUs do not require a density bonus or density variance because they're allowed by right if you can meet the setbacks and requirements of the ADU. This one is unable to, so she is coming forward asking for a density variance because she wants to put essentially a second primary dwelling unit on her property. Well, 2 additional dwelling units because it's a duplex.
Thank you. So if there were to move forward, then would another lot need to be created then for the second?
No, no, Chair, Commissioners, no.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, yes, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for staff, for Ms. Valdez, or staff. Is another way of looking at this to be able to say that this could be we're not advertising it this way, but this could be a variance for a second accessory dwelling unit on the property?
I would sit there and say no, because it doesn't meet the requirements of an ADU. If it wasn't 2 stories, then yes, we could possibly go that route. I see your logic,
Yeah.
but with it being 2 stories, it doesn't meet the requirements of the ADU under the SLDC. So we can't look at this case that way. But if she had a single-story duplex and wanted that, then yes, I think that we could sit there and say that. But with it being 2 stories, no.
So a follow-up, thank you for that clarification. For further question, what if we were to consider that the primary residence on the property was the ADU, albeit too large under the code because it's more than half the size? It would be more than half the size of the 2-story duplex. And what if the 2-story, the duplex, which is the accessory dwelling unit, was considered the primary unit on the property? And I mean, we must have situations where people actually owners live in the ADU and rent out the other single unit. Any comments about that, or what staff thought about that?
Chair, Commissioners, the way that would work, her single-family home is 1,309 square feet. So the minimum square footage of the ADU that she's asking for a variance on would have to be 2,618 square feet in order for her to fall into that category.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around other permutations of how this could be viewed before we proceed.
And that was, every avenue was looked at in doing this case to see was there essentially an easy way of doing it, and without removing the second story and not utilizing that, the only option would be for a density variance to allow the additional dwelling units because of the 2-story structure.
Thank you, Mr. Yotzi. Having been in the position of staff trying to assist an applicant in the past, I appreciate the efforts that county staff has been making in this request. Thank you. That's all.
And Mr. Chair, if I might add,
Yes, please.
addressing an issue that Commissioner Pava has raised, and I think everyone is thinking of, as Jordan said, that staff has worked with the applicant and has tried to figure out what might be the best approach, how best to present this application. And now that it has been finalized and presented to you, the commission's duty at this point is simply to rule on the application as it's presented. Certainly, if the application were to be denied, suggestions could be made for what to come back with, but it would not be appropriate to approve some form of application that actually isn't being presented to the commission today.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I do have a question. If this variance request were to be denied, the buildings still exist, and what is the disposition expected by the county for those? What is an alternative for the owner of the property if this application were to be denied? Thank you.
If the Chair, Commissioners, if the application was denied, one option for the property owner could be to remove all plumbing and fixtures from the upper floor and use it as storage where it's not livable space. And then at that point in time, we could consider the fact that the first floor is an allowable ADU because under the square footage compared to the main home, and then that the second story would just be a storage area.
Thanks. I think the square footage doesn't quite work out. The 1309 divided by 2 is a little bit less than the, what are they, 800 and some odd square feet? Yeah.
We're about 40 square feet off. We could find something
Okay.
to make it work.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any further questions from commissioners for staff? Applicant, would applicant like to come up and make a presentation? Thank you.
I do. Christine Stryker, 23 Saddle Road, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87508.
Thank you. Please give us your presentation. Thank you.
We bought our house on 2022, and we bought it the way it was. Nothing new has been added onto it. We had two-story buildings, and we wanted to rent the guest houses for short-term rental. I applied for the permit. I was given the upstairs one to be rented, which I'm doing right now. It's the only source of income that we have. I'm asking you guys to help us. The bottom one is all ready to go. It has everything it needs to go. And we would like to rent that one too, and that's why I'm here for you guys.
Thanks very much. Are there any questions from commissioners for the applicant? Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes, good afternoon. What I'm concerned about is when you looked at that property with a realtor, I assume you went through a realtor to buy it. What did that realtor tell you? Did they do anything, tell you that you could have 3 rentals on that property, or what did they say?
No, they say we can have 2 rentals, which was upstairs and downstairs for the guest houses. But we did not think that we are going to rent our main house because we are going to live in the main house. So we never asked them about that.
Now, did anybody say that, did anybody do any research on that, like get title insurance or a warranty deed that said this is what you had on the property, that you could enjoy it, that could use it?
No.
Anything like that?
No, and we didn't because at that moment it was very hard to find a home, and we had already sold our home in Colorado, and we were just lucky to find that one.
And when you looked at the home and you, the person you bought it from, what did they tell you?
We had the guest houses.
That's what they said that,
That's what we saw, and I think somebody was renting it too because it had beds and plumbing and everything, kitchen, bedroom area, bathroom area, living room area.
did they tell you could use it as 2 separate rentals?
They didn't say that way, we didn't talk to the owner. We bought the place, assuming that we will rent it as a 2 guest houses.
And did you ever go back to the realtor and tell him that this was a problem for you?
No, I didn't, because I didn't think it was a problem. I came straight to, county and asked for permission to rent it as a short-term rental.
We've had these cases come before us, and it seems that the realtor is the one that misleads people to say that they can use these as rentals. And then the owner is in a situation like you are, then they have any recourse to come to try to get a variance approved. And that's a very difficult thing for us to do.
I agree.
I have a problem with the 2 stories and having 2 rentals on your property. That's the situation. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions? Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Stryker.
Thank you.
So, to clarify, what are you using? You said short-term rental?
Correct.
Does that mean 6-month leases or 30-month leases, or
No.
what are you doing now for the one unit that you have, and then what do you propose to do for the second unit if that were approved?
I rent it as Airbnb, and it's 28 days, the longest I can rent it so far. And that's what I'm asking you guys to give me permission to rent my bottom one, because that's the only really source of income we have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Stryker, so when you purchased the property in 2022, was it advertised as a home? Because, you know, you look online, whether you see it online or wherever you get your advertisement from, was it listed as a home in 2 guest homes when you went to purchase the home?
It was just listed as a home.
Okay. And when since the time that you purchased it in 2022, have you done any modifications to it? Did you add anything to a second story and plumbing
No.
or whatever to make it more
No.
functional?
It's exactly the way I bought it. Nothing. We haven't had anything. Everything which is there was there.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
So when you were saying that when you purchased the property, it was advertised as a house and a guest house? Is that-
No,
Oh, okay, all right.
it was a home, but they did mention that it also have a guest house.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you. This is a question for staff. In many of these proceedings, we will get correspondence from affected neighbors, and I'm not sure if that is something that has happened or is required in this type of case. Thank you.
No, sir, she hasn't had no complaints. There's been no letters. There's been nothing. She did hang the notice board up. She posted in the paper like she was supposed to, and there hasn't been no complaints.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions from commissioners? Any discussion? Vice Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I mean, again, we get a case here where somebody buys property, and as Commissioner Gonzalez mentions, you know, there's for the realtors, they're trying to make a sale, and there's no law on the books as far as certain types of disclosures, and, you know, a lot of them don't even, they're not well informed. I don't want to speak for all of them, but with the new code, and so what happens is people get misled like this, and so it puts them all in a tough situation. It's hard because you come here with good faith to buy something in good faith, and then you find something very different, and so it's a hard case, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. I agree. I've been on this hobby horse before, and I might recommend to Director Ladd that the county put out some outreach information to hit some realtors over the head. No, not hit them over the head, but to inform some realtors of the requirements and that they are letting down their potential customers if they don't go through a quick check with development review.
Chair, I would just remind you that we need to do the public hearing before we get too far into discussion.
Got it. Thank you. So yes, this is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public, either in the room or online, who would like to speak?
There's currently nobody online indicating they wish to speak.
And I don't see anybody intending to speak here. So let's close the public hearing portion of this. And thank you for the reminder.
And Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions. What I'm concerned about is that this two-story structure is unpermitted. And the county says you have to get an after-the-fact permit. And I'm concerned that for the safety of the public, you know, to get an after-the-fact permit, you know, you have to go through CID. The county approves a development, it has to go through the CID. And I find it very difficult to go and check the electrical and check the plumbing, and there's no safety requirements there, that it was inspected before it was built. That's what I'm concerned about, and also concerned about that she will use them as rentals. You know, that's the thing. You know, you have members of the public that you don't know that come, and they expect to be in a very safe environment, and after the fact, unpermitted structure is not the safest for people to be renting. If she was gonna live in it, you know, that is one thing. But to have members of the public that you don't know that come for a short-term rental, that is my problem with this, and also the 2 stories. You know, I wanna make it, if we approve this, it should be not a short-term rental, but a regular house, a residence for long-term. But she already has a short-term rental agreement. Is that what she's kind of approved for?
Chair, Commissioners, yes, she has a permit to rent the upstairs unit as a short-term rental.
Okay, thank you. Those are my comments.
So
Okay.
then, oh, go ahead.
No, we've already heard a lot of these. Every time someone comes in for the short-term rental certification, how many times has this happened? So what I'm concerned about is us being consistent as a board on these, because they're all the same, but all a little different. You know, so this is just gonna keep happening as people come in for these certifications.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, I think, and this is a question for staff, so if somebody comes in for an after-the-fact permit, I don't believe that CID will take that case because they will not, because they didn't have the reason for inspecting it, or since the start, it's actually the county that is the one issuing the ATF, so there's no, they will not come in and give an occupancy permit for that, is that correct?
That is my understanding. The CID is very restrictive on what they'll inspect for after the fact. It depends on the structure and the use, and it usually is a lot of work on the property owner. It's opening walls up, it's potholing around the foundation, it's getting the sewer lines scoped. It's a lot of work that CID doesn't enforce. So it depends on the usage, but we've noticed with most residential after-the-fact permits that CID is not doing inspections or issuing certificate of occupancies or anything.
And so, Mr. Chair, Ms. Stryker's already approved for the main home and one accessory dwelling to be used as short-term rental. But as we talked earlier, the remedy, the chairman asked, they said that she'd have to turn the upstairs into storage, but it currently sounds that's what she's using as the short-term rental.
And so if one option would be to turn the bottom into a storage and remove the livable fixtures out of there.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner.
if I may, I just wanted to add on to what Commissioner Gonzalez had mentioned, that if this were to be presented as an accessory dwelling unit request, which I guess it's not, then it wouldn't meet the requirements of code due to the height limitations and the square footage limitations. If it's being presented as 2 homes on one lot, then it's just a matter of density variance, which would have to meet and not be negative to the public purpose and be an extraordinary condition. And although what was disclosed to you, Ms. Stryker, at the time of the sale is really unfortunate, at least in my mind, it doesn't represent extraordinary condition that is furthers a public interest. So, thank you.
Commissioner Pava.
So this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and this can be appealed to, if we deny this, could Ms. Stryker appeal this to the county commission?
Chairman, Commissioners, yes.
Okay.
Any decision made on behalf of the Planning Commission can be appealed to the Board of County Commissioners.
Which would be a good place to air my fellow commissioners' concerns about the real estate community's inability to comprehend the Sustainable Land Development Code.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Thanks very much. Again, I want to talk about the future if this variance request were to be denied. I just want to elaborate a little bit more. So if this were to be denied, the building currently exists. There is a temporary short-term rental permit that evidently needs to be either re-upped every year, or that was a one-time thing until issues with the property were resolved. How does that work?
It is issued for 1 year. If they are still going through the process and it's not a delay on their end that they haven't finished the process, we will renew it for 3 months, 6 months. But since she has gone through the process, if the variance is denied, her short-term rental permit will not be renewed.
Okay. And in that case, she has a home and she has a 2-story structure that is built the way it's built. Whether it's safe or not, it's built the way it's built. But it would not be possible for anyone to live in that structure. The plumbing, fixtures, and things would need to be removed from both top and bottom so that it would turn into an auxiliary structure rather than a fake ADU.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to game out what the future would be if we were to deny this application. So,
I didn't understand it that way. I thought if we would deny it, then one of the 2 stories would have to be converted to something other than a dwelling unit.
If it was denied, one of the 2 stories would have to go away. Staff would work with her to allow her to keep one of the stories.
excuse me,
somehow.
one of the 2 stories would have to go away means the plumbing and the plumbing fixtures would need to
Yes.
be removed from them because they wouldn't actually go away.
Yes, yes. They could not be livable space.
Okay. So it would, so if, and I'm sorry for diving in, but we're trying to understand that this is a difficult situation. So if I'm an Airbnb user and I'm able to rent the top or the bottom story of this place with a non-livable space in it, there couldn't be a gym in there or something like that. What are the limitations on the use of that space with the plumbing removed? And sorry to go down these rabbit holes, but they keep digging these rabbit holes for us.
I mean, Chair, Commissioners, I am envisioning a storage space.
Thank you. Commissioners, does anyone have a motion?
Start. Okay, I motion to approve the variance for case 245310, which would allow 2 primary residents on the parcel, or 3, I don't know how to say this, so to be 3, the variance is to allow 3 dwelling units on the parcel. That is the motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I'm imagining that we should take a roll call vote on this?
Chair, before you take a vote,
Yes.
can we add subject to the
Oh, subject
conditions?
to, yeah. Does the mover and the seconder
Yes.
agree that all the staff conditions are included in that motion?
All the staff conditions would be included.
Thank you. May we have a roll call vote?
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes? So the motion is approved?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And if I could, I just want to get back on that hobby horse and really urge some kind of outreach to the real estate community or to any online portals, just to say, hey, you thinking of buying a property? It's fun to live here. Check with Development Review, and they'll tell you how fun it is to live in this particular property. Because these things keep happening time after time. It's difficult for all involved. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I have started that conversation with some folks in the real estate community. I think our interactive zoning map makes it a lot easier for realtors to look up basic information about parcels, and we didn't have that, at the time that a lot of these transactions were happening as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next case, case 24-5260, Loretta Martinez. So, Brianna.
Good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Brianna Ortega. I'm a Development Review Specialist. Today I come before you with case number 24-5260, Loretta Martinez Cargo Variance. Loretta Martinez Cargo, applicant, requests a variance of Chapter 8, Section 8.6.3, Table 8-7, Dimensional Standards, Rural Fringe, to create a two-lot residential subdivision on a parcel of land consisting of 49.11 acres. The subject property lies within the Rural Fringe zoning district, which allows for one single-family residence per 20 acres. The property is located at 7679B Old Santa Fe Trail, SDA 2, Commission District 4. The applicant's sister, Maria Martinez, is the owner of the property as indicated by warranty deed recorded in the records of the Santa Fe County Clerk on March 2nd, 2021, recorded as instrument number 1945312. Maria Martinez has granted permission to her sister Loretta Martinez Cargo to apply for the variance. The property is accessed off Old Santa Fe Trail. The applicant is seeking to divide the property into a two-lot residential subdivision, where the applicant is able to get a 3-acre tract and the rest be kept preserved for wildlife. The applicant is also requesting a variance of density to allow one dwelling unit per proposed lot to be created. The property is split between rural fringe and residential estate. Chapter 8, Section 8.6.3 of the SLDC for rural fringe requires a minimum lot size of one dwelling per 20 acres base density. Chapter 8, Section 8.6.6 of the SLDC requires a minimum of one dwelling per 2.5 acres base density. There is no permit for the existing residence on the property, and it will need an after-the-fact permit, as well as an additional variance for density, since it is a two-story dwelling. Santa Fe County staff has conducted a site inspection on the property. As part of the conditions of approval, the applicant will be required to obtain an after-the-fact permit for the two-story residence. The applicant's response to the variance review criteria is as follows. The applicant has addressed the variance criteria, and staff has responded to the application comments. Building and Development staff has reviewed this project for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that facts presented support requests for a variance to create a two-lot residential subdivision on a parcel of land consisting of 49.11 acres. The application satisfies the submittal requirements set forth in the SLDC, inclusive of the variance criteria set forth in Chapter 8, Section 8.6.7. Staff recommendation. The SLDC zoning has divided this property into two separate density requirements. Because it is split between two zoning districts, the required density for rural fringe on the northern part of the property is one dwelling per 20 acres. As for the southern part of the property, which is in residential estate, is one dwelling per 2.5 acres base density. If the entire parcel as a whole was in residential estate,
the applicant would be able to split the property administratively. Staff believes the applicant has satisfied the criteria for granting of the requested variance due to split zoning within the parcel and recommends approval of the variance request. Building and Development Services staff has conducted a site inspection on this property. Hearing officer recommendation. On January 9th, 2025, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and conclusions of law in a recommended order on this request. The recommendation of staff and the recommendation of the hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, is for approval of the request to allow a variance of density. Mr. Chair, may I enter the conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. This report and the exhibits listed are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record. Members of the Planning Commission, I stand for questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Commissioner?
On this part of the parcel they say is going to be for wildlife, is a conservation easement going to be placed on this property, or other sort of easement that would ensure that there would be no development on the property?
Chair, Commissioners, part of the SLDC is open space requirement, so you can never develop all of your lot. That would be one thing for them. They could do a conservation easement. They could look at doing possible TDRs if it is in an area, but there is an open space requirement as part of the SLDC to ensure that it's like, it varies from 30 to 50%.
Any other
Yeah.
Commissioner Bruger?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just following up on the last comment, then if the applicant owner came in 20 years down the road and for the large lot proposed a lot split or a minor subdivision, would that be possible?
Chair, Commissioners, one of the conditions of approval is no other dwelling units allowed on these properties.
Thank you.
And no further divisions, I believe. Thank you. Commissioner,
Okay, I just had a follow-up on the conservation easement. Isn't there some sort of tax break if someone puts their property in an easement?
I think the answer to that is yes, and that's about as much detail as I could give you
I
on the
think there
subject.
is.
But if the owner wanted, or owners wanted to pursue that, I think certain benefits could accrue to them if they did something more formal than just notes on a
Right.
approved plat. If they were
Right.
to create a conservation easement or a TDR agreement, there would be.
If I remember right, there is some sort of tax break on that.
thank you. Any other commissioners with questions? Commissioner Pava?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Questions for staff. Thank you for the good presentation. The pictures show that there's one dwelling unit on the property, and it's 2 stories. Do I understand that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, or yes, Mr. Commissioner.
And there's no accessory dwelling unit involved here.
No.
And the fact that the building is 2 stories, is it compliant with the Sustainable Development Code height restrictions? There's no issue about height here?
Chair, Commissioners, no, there's no concern about height. I think
Okay.
that the fact it was 2 stories was in a report was just to give you some more details about the property.
Yeah, it's a nice looking structure. Okay. I think, and there's the history on the unit in this case is staff researched and could find no building permits.
Yeah, there's no permits on it. The applicant's father built the home before he passed, and he created it just for the applicant.
And I understand that the property goes back quite a ways with the family?
Yes.
Yeah, quite a ways. Yeah, okay. Thank you. That's the end of my questions.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have questions for staff?
I've got a question.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
You know, I read on the thing that there's rural fringe and then residential estate. there was split zoning on the property. So what is going to apply on this property in the entirety? Are you going to let it be rural fringe or residential estate?
Chair, Commissioners, that's one of the reasons for the variance. The only really way to clean that up would be a zoning map change, because the zoning doesn't follow a property line. And so the easiest route for this is to ask for the variance. They could have asked for a zoning change and said that the property was not zoned correctly, it should be one or the other, which might have allowed these. But under the SLDC, it is very difficult to do a zone change, and so this was the easier option.
So it's still going to be split zoning.
That is correct, until the time that a zoning map was cleaned up. But this area will be marked for future cleanup of a zoning map.
Okay, so in the future, when it becomes residential estate, can they build more houses on that, or this variance granting precludes that?
This variance will preclude that because of the conditions of approval.
And the other question I have, I think, is for the applicant, as far as how old the house is. You know, some of these houses are old, they didn't have permits in those days, but anyway, I'll ask that to the applicant.
Thank you. Commissioner Ruger.
Just a question for staff. Sorry. In the fire department report, it states that fire apparatus access roads shall be provided and maintained. So the question is, what do we have now, and what would the applicant have to do if this were approved?
Chair, Planning Commission, usually that involves making sure the road is wide enough, a minimum of, I believe it's 14 feet, that it is an all-weather surface that an 80,000-pound fire truck can drive down, and depending on the length of it, they could require turnarounds or passing lanes on it.
Thank you.
I do. Loretta Martinez Cargo, 27 Little Island Road, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87505.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Commissioner Gonzalez had a question.
Oh, yes, I had a question. How old is that residence on the property?
It's 13 or 14 years old.
14 years old?
Yes,
And who built that?
my father did.
Did he have permits for that you know of?
What he was told when he got the license or the permit to dig a well, by the office where he got that permit, they told him he could build a residence on the property, so he built it. He understood that was his permit. And it wasn't until we went and got the 3 acres surveyed by Scott McCloy and went to get that turned in that we found out that everything was a mess. And my father's been gone. It'll be 5 years now in April. So.
Well, thank you very much.
And as in reference to the conservation questions, our intent as a family is to keep this land as wild as possible. That was our father's dream. This land has been in our family for many generations. It was from my great-grandparents, and it's just been ours. We've lived there all our lives, so.
Well, that's really nice that he wanted that to happen. You might want to look at the New Mexico Land Conservancy, because you can get federal and tax, benefits by putting that land into a conservancy, which is basically what you want to do.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that suggestion. I appreciate it.
Vice Chair.
So, Mr. Chairman, we approved this variance. Part of the conditions is that there be no further divisions that would be allowed. And I don't know, according to these 2 different zoning areas, if that was ever be a possibility, but you understand the conditions of this, right? Okay.
Yes, sir. We actually have spoken to the county about making that part of the agreement that we make with you.
Great, thank you. That's all.
Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Bruger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Martinez, just wanted to ask, then you've reviewed the conditions of approval as presented by staff, that if this were to be approved, that there would be after-the-fact permitting of the structure? And
Yes,
that-
and I have applied for that, and so it is supposed to be approved as well.
And then the fire department conditions, it may have some financial obligation on your part to comply with those conditions, so you're aware of that, and you would accept that?
Yes, and I did speak to somebody at the fire department, and he said as long as it was a 14-foot wide driveway and an emergency vehicle could make a safe turn around in the area, that it would be permitted. So we do have, it's a roundabout driveway, and there's plenty of area for, I mean, UPS trucks, everything comes in there and can turn around and get out. So we should be in compliance with that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Thank you, ma'am. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience or online who is interested in speaking either for or against this request?
Chairman, there's nobody online indicating they wish to speak.
Thanks. Commissioners, may I have a motion?
Motion.
Commissioner Pava.
Motion to approve case 24-5260 with the conditions stipulated in the staff report.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Commissioners, all in favor, please signify.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. The variance request is approved. Appreciate it. Next, we have case 24-5280, Reyes Huerta variance. Thank you, Ms. Valdez.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Planning Commission. My name is Maggie Valdez. I'm a Development Review Specialist Senior. Today I bring before you case number 24-5280, Reyes Huerta variance. Reyes Huerta applicant Vigil Design, Annette Vigil, agent, requests variance of Chapter 9, Table 9-8-7, Dimensional Standards Residential Estate, RES-E, setbacks to allow an accessory structure to encroach within the 50-foot rear setbacks. The subject property lies within the residential estate, RESE, zoning district within La Cienega Community Overlay District, which allows for one single-family residence per 2.5 acres. The property is located at 47 Sunset Road, SDA 2, Commission District 3. History. The applicants constructed a 30-foot by 70-foot square foot accessory structure that encroached 31 feet into the 50-foot setback without obtaining a development permit for Santa Fe County. The structure does not meet the setback requirements outlined in the Sustainable Land Development Code. Summary. The applicant is requesting a variance of Table 9-8-7C setback to allow a 30-foot by 70 square foot existing accessory structure to encroach on the required 50-foot rear setback. The property lies within the residential estate zoning district, RESE, within La Cienega Community Overlay District. The applicant states, I am asking for a variance for a 30-foot, 70-foot accessory structure that I placed on my property that was not permitted. The area it is in is the only reasonable place to put it due to terrain constraints. If the setbacks variance for the accessory structure is not approved and we had to tear it down, would create a financial burden due to material and timelines of completing the accessory structure. In response to Section 4.9.74, the applicant has addressed the variance criteria as followed, and staff has responded to the applicant's comments. Building and Development Service staff has conducted a site inspection on the property. The Building and Development Service staff has reviewed the variance application for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and found that the facts presented do not support the request for a variance to allow the accessory structure to encroach into the required setbacks. Specifically, staff found that there are other buildable areas on the property and the structure was constructed without permits. The applicants could have consulted with staff prior to constructing the structures, and staff would have advised the applicants of the setback requirements, thus avoiding this situation entirely. The submittal requirements set forth in the SLD, inclusive of the variance criteria set forth in Chapter 9, Section 9.8, Table 9-87. Hearing officer meeting. On the January 9th, 2025 hearing, the individual testified in opposition of the request for the accessory structure 50-foot setback. The individual believes that the garage is intended for commercial activity similar to an automotive repair shop. Another individual spoke in favor of stating that a garage will allow him to store his vehicles out of sight. The testimony of this individual is stated in the minutes recorded on January 9th, 2025 with the Santa Fe County Clerk's Office. Hearing officer's recommendations. On January 9th, 2025, the request was presented to Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and conclusion of law in a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommends that the application be denied. Subject to application does not satisfy the requirements of Chapter 4.9.7. Recommendation. Staff recommends denial of the variance request to allow an existing unpermitted structure to encroach into the required 50-foot setback. The applicant's request for a variance does not meet the criteria for variance set forth in the SLDCs. If Planning Commission recommends approval of this variance permit, staff recommends the following conditions. Mr. Chair, Commission, may I enter the conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. This report and the exhibits listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record. Mr. Chair, Commission, I stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Valdez. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
I've got a question, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
You know, I saw that the structure is like 2,100 square feet. Is there a requirement that the accessory structure not be like twice as big as the residence on the property? I thought the residence property was about 1,400 square feet. Is there a requirement where you can have a huge accessory structure? Are there any limits on that?
The only problem, Mr. Gonzalez, that was on the property was just the encroaching of the 50-foot rear setback. And I wish I could answer a little bit more, but I did not go out to the site to actually look at it.
Chair, Commissioners, there's no restrictions on the size of an accessory structure.
Think a barn.
Only the accessory dwelling units are limited. You can have a 5,000 square foot garage and a 1,000 square foot home.
Okay, that's
Or a
what I
large
was
barn,
concerned
yeah.
about. That is an area where there's a lot of congestion.
Yes, when it comes to accessory structures, the only requirement of the SLDC is that there has to be a primary residence before you can build an accessory structure.
Yeah, the other concern I have is unpermitted structure. You know, that is a huge, it seems to be a very large building. And it seems to be like a commercial, because it's, I guess it was, I saw the diagrams, and it was a metal building, I think. And it seems to be, it had engineering plans and stuff, and I was wondering, you know, what the situation is on that.
Mr. Gonzalez, I just, right now, whatever I presented is all I know. The only thing I know about it is it's just an accessory structure for Mr. Hurete to park his cars or whatever else he needs.
I'll
to
ask
do
the
with it.
applicant.
I'm sorry.
Those questions.
Thank you. Does any other commissioners have questions? Commissioner Bruger?
Thank you, Ms. Valdez. Here is, I have a couple of questions. You may not have gone to do a site inspection, but I think I read somewhere in the staff report that in staff's estimation, there was another area on the site where this facility could have been placed that wouldn't have been violating the setback requirement. Is that true?
Yes, sir. Mr. Lovato went out to the site, and yes, he did state that there would have been another area for them to go ahead and place the structure, sir.
Okay. One other question, if I may. Is an automobile storage facility a permitted use in this zone?
I can't answer that question right now for you, sir. Maybe Mr. Yotzi can.
Chair, Commissioners, automobile storage, this is for personal use, and so it would be allowed. And if you're asking, can he run an automobile business out of there, I would have to look that up for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? I have a few. Ms. Valdez, how did the county become aware of this? Was there a complaint or, thank you.
Yes, sir. My understanding was that code enforcement was called out to the area.
Thanks. And after determining that a permit was not issued, it looks like there was a stop work order and the roof's not completed. Is that still what it looks like? The photographs looked like it was not finished.
Yes, sir. That's correct. He hasn't done anything else to the structure.
Okay, thank you very much. Is any other questions of staff? Oh, Jeremy.
Is there a slab for the carport that's already been poured?
I can't answer that question, sir. I didn't go out to the site. I apologize.
And I think if you look at Exhibit C, it appears that there is a slab. Any other questions of staff? Commissioner Bruger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there other similar accessory structures of this size in this area, immediate area?
Yes, sir. I would say so.
Chair, Commissioners, yes. It appears that looks like there's actually a tennis court across the street from this house.
An abandoned tennis court. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Valdez. Is the applicant here?
I think they were going to be calling in.
Okay, is the applicant available online?
There is currently nobody online.
Okay, is there anyone here from the public? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Hearing none, let's close the public hearing portion. Commissioners.
One motion.
Commissioner Pava.
Motion for denial in case 245280.
Is there a second?
Second.
So a motion from Commissioner Pava, a second from Vice Chair Trujillo, Commissioner Gonzalez.
I have some discussion on this matter.
Absolutely.
You know, what I read in the presentation was, you know, we had several letters of opposition to this, and the people that wrote these letters, they mentioned that they had built accessory structures and that they had to go through the building process in order to get them approved. And some of the letters said that, you know, they could have built in a certain location, but when staff went out there, when they got the staff staff told them, well, you better move it to another location, would cost them extra money. So I think there was 2 or 3 letters that said they built accessory structures with permits, and they complied with county regulations. And some of the other letters said they were very concerned about building without a permit. That was the situation on that. So that's the only points I want to make, is that, you know, residents there, even though they're not here today, they did send in the letters. So with that, that's my comment.
And I did have
Thank
one
you.
extra
Yes,
question.
Commissioner.
Were the 2 driveways, this new driveway that he created into this area, was that, that would be, if it was approved, that they couldn't use that driveway?
Yes, ma'am. The other one would have been closed off, and then the driveway that you're looking at would be the one that they would be accessing. And that was brought up by Rhodes from Mr. Martinez.
Vice Chair Trujillo.
So, Mr. Chair, just a question here for staff, because I see here that it appears to me that in this area, the zoning area allows 2.5 acres, or the zoning is for 2.5 acres in this particular area for a home and an accessory dwelling or an accessory structure. Is it 2.5 acres in this area?
Yes, sir.
It is?
Yes, sir.
So it appears to me here, after looking at this property, that it's currently 1.25 acres. So they must have purchased the property before the Sustainable Land Development Code was put into place. So had they come in for a permit, they were probably going to be denied. Wouldn't it be, or is there a limit on accessory structures?
Chair, Commissioners, as long as they can meet the setbacks, they are not denied. We do not deny for ADUs or accessory structures if you can meet the setbacks and the requirements for the structures.
Even if your property is less than the required?
That is correct. The property size only accounts for the number of dwelling units allowed on the property.
So if they had come in, they would have been granted a permit as long as they met the setbacks?
That is correct.
Thank you.
I have a question. It's the question I always ask. If this variance is denied, the half-built structure currently exists. What will be the disposition of that? Does the county have, is it a requirement to remove? I'm just trying to understand, if someone is out of compliance and this variance is denied, what happens to that half-built 3-car garage?
So in this incident, it's a little bit different than a normal one because code enforcement is involved. So if the variance is denied and the applicant chooses not to appeal the denial to Board of County Commissioners, the case now will be turned back over to code enforcement to get compliance, which would be they can voluntarily comply and move the structure, or we will take them to court and have the structure, an order to move the structure, or the county can go as far as to get injunctive relief against the property owners, and the county goes and moves the structure.
Got it. So there is a mechanism through the district court process
That is correct.
for enforcement of this. Okay, thank you very much. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion from commissioners? So let's do a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gruber?
Yes.
Mr. Pava?
Yes.
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 Yes, so the variance request is denied. Thank you very much, and appreciate the work. Next on the agenda, we have case number 24-5300. James C. Portillo II and Miguel L. Portillo are the applicants. Kenneth, thanks.
Good afternoon, Chair. Thank you. Before you today, we have James C. Portillo II and Miguel Portillo as the applicants on a request of variance of Chapter 8, Section 8.6.6, Table 8-10, the dimensional standards for residential estate to create a two-lot residential subdivision on a parcel of land consisting of 2.5 acres. The subject property lies within the residential estate zoning district, which allows for one single-family residence per 2.5 acres. The applicants met with staff to submit an application to allow the property to be split into two lots, each containing 1.25 acres each. The applicants are requesting a variance of Chapter 8, Section 8.6.6, Table 8-10, Dimensional Standards Residential Estate to create a two-lot residential subdivision. The applicant states that his grandparents gave him and his brother a 2.5 acre lot to split to have the ability to establish a residence each. The applicants are planning to utilize a shared well between both lots created. The applicant has addressed the variance criteria as detailed in the memo. Hearing officer recommendation. On January 9, 2025, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development hearing officer. The hearing officer memorized findings of fact and conclusions of law in a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommended denial of the request to allow a variance of Chapter 8, Section 8.6.6, Table 8-10, Dimensional Standards Residential Estate to create a two-lot residential subdivision. Staff's recommendation. Building and Development Services staff has reviewed this request for compliance with the permanent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented do not support the request for a variance. The use may impact adjacent land uses. No extraordinary and exceptional conditions of the land exist. Staff recommends denial of the request for a variance of Chapter 8, Section 8.6.6, Table 8-10, Dimensional Standards Residential Estate to create a two-lot residential subdivision on a parcel of land consisting of 2.5 acres. If the Santa Fe County Planning Commission finds that the application has met the variance criteria and recommends approval on the variance, staff recommends the following conditions be imposed. Mr. Chair, may I enter these conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Chair. I stand for any questions.
Commissioners, are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Gonzalez.
I've got a question for Kenneth. Have you been out to the property to do a site inspection on that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, yes, I have been out to the site inspection. During the original split of this property, staff performed a site inspection of the road to ensure compliance.
Was that the access road that they constructed?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, that is correct.
Okay, I wonder, and what else did you see out there? Are there any dwellings in that area on the property that was split up?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, there are no existing residences on this property. No improvements other than the road itself.
And when were these lots split? With the grandfather to the grandkids?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, these lots were created in August of 2024.
Okay, and that was, and those lots were deeded to the applicants?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from commissioners for staff? Commissioner Bruger.
Thank you, Mr. Quintana. One of the exhibits that we have in the staff report is a survey plat, small lot family transfer land division for Arthur and Nancy Portillo. That was done in 2000. And I guess that created, if I understand it right, the smaller lots, lot 1 and 2, that's on the survey plat. I thought I read somewhere in the staff report that there was a small lot family transfer program before, but there isn't now. mistaken, or is that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, you are correct. Under the previous ordinance prior to the 2016 ordinance, there was the small lot family transfer, which allowed individuals to go half the size of the zonings that they were located in. In the 2016 ordinance, the family transfer did carry over. However, you have to comply with the zoning that you're located in.
Thank you. Any further questions from commissioners? No?
All right,
Oh, yes, Commissioner Ruger, sorry.
of course. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have you received comments from the adjacent landowners on this application?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, I have received no comments of opposition nor in favor. However, during the public hearing for hearing officer, there were individuals who spoke in favor for this application.
Okay. And one last question, if I could. Have similar density variances, I'm a new commissioner, so I wouldn't know. Have similar density variances related to family transfers been approved in this area recently?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, for the area, this is the first that I have brought forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions of staff? Thank you very much, Kenneth.
Thank you, Chair.
Is the applicant present? Please be sworn in. Thank you.
Yes. James Christopher Portillo, 90 North Fork, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87508.
Miguel Lorenzo Portillo, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 90 North Fork, 87508.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Planning Commissioners. My name is James Portillo, and this is my brother, Miguel Portillo. We are co-owners of our 2.5-acre lot located at 11 Calle de Portillos in Santa Fe County. We were gifted this undeveloped 2.5-acre lot by our grandparents, Arturo and Nancy Portillo, with their plan for each of us to have 1.25 acres separately owned and have the ability to establish a residence. My grandparents bought and have owned 15 acres in this particular area since approximately 1980, where my grandma still resides to this day. Last year, my grandparents subdivided their remaining 7.5 acres, and they generously gifted my brother and I 2.5 acres. Their intention was to keep us as a family close-knit and obtain a residency close to one another. This particular zoning code where my property lies has proved many hardships for my brother and I, as co-owners who are eager to develop and have a residence of our own. Granting this variance would enable each of us to secure individual loans and develop our own residence, thereby fulfilling our grandparents' vision of having their family close by. We believe granting this variance would not only benefit us, but also align with the community's development goals by allowing young local residents the opportunity to stay here in Santa Fe and contribute positively to the area. Being that our parcel is co-owned, the zoning code in this particular area only allows for one main house and one guest house, the guest house only being half the size of the main house. If granted, this variance will allow my brother and I to individually have an adequate sized house that fits both our individuals' families' needs. In the same manner, if granted, this variance will enable each of us to manage our own individual electric bills, which is much more practical and fair. As co-owners of this parcel, having one combined electricity bill for a potential 2 households can lead to confusion and potential disagreements over usage and payments. By granting this variance, we can ensure a clear accountability and financial independence for each household, making it easier to budget and manage our expenses effectively. My brother and I both plan to share one water well for the combined 2.5 acres. We understand the importance of maintaining the character and integrity of the Turquoise Trail District in Santa Fe County and are committed to ensuring that any development on our property adheres to these principles. We are more than willing to address any concerns and to ensure that our plans are in line with county standards. We established easement access this past year. We spent almost $12,000 on the easement access road to be built. We put in 240 tons of base course for the road. We had to rent graders, backhoes, dump trucks, and compactors, as well as spend money on fuel for these machines and water to compact the road. Granting this variance will allow us to use the road that we worked hard to put in. I'm 28 years old and my brother is 22, and we still live with our dad, and we are eager to have a place of our own, and this is our opportunity to do so. As we all know, it's very hard to obtain a residence here in Santa Fe. A lot of homes go for $500,000-$600,000 plus, and a lot of young local residents like us are having to move to Albuquerque, Bernalillo, and Rio Rancho. For us, we want to stay here in Santa Fe. We were born and raised, and utilize the property that my grandparents gave to us to our full potential. My grandpa died this past year, and before he passed away, he was able to get out to the property and see the progress that we've made, and he was very pleased with that. I also work for Santa Fe County Fire Department as a full-time career firefighter, and one of the reasons why I chose the county fire department was to serve the community where I grew up in. My brother is a City of Santa Fe animal control officer, and allowing us to stay here in Santa Fe and granting this variance will allow us to positively contribute to Santa Fe, where we grew up. To my knowledge, there hasn't been one of my neighbors out of 20 that I had to send notices to within 500 feet that have come forward to dispute my request and application. Also, my brother and I have no intentions of selling this property down the road. If this gets approved, this property has a lot of meaning and significance to us, and that is why we are fighting so hard for both of us to be able to utilize this property to its full potential that my grandparents intended it to be. This will be my forever home. We have been compliant with everything the county has requested of us. By granting this variance, it allows us to maintain a family-oriented nature of our property while adhering to the community's development goals. By subdividing the lot, we are not only preserving the historical and family significance of the land, but also contributing positively to the local community, allowing young residents like ourselves to stay here in Santa Fe. In the letter that we received from the hearing officer after the last meeting, it stated the application and testimony do not set forth any extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions of the property to justify granting a variance. Mr. Chair and Planning Commission, everything I have mentioned, my brother and I both feel are very much extraordinary and exceptional conditions in this situation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner, Vice Chair Trujillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for that presentation. You did a great job. So who is Arthur and Nancy Potrillo? Who is that in relationship to you?
That is my grandparents.
Okay, so he granted this easement through his property, this road that you've already placed in there. And currently, this parcel of land that's 2.5 acres, it's deeded to the two of you as one parcel, or how is it currently deeded?
Correct. We are co-owners for the 2.5 acre parcel.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, if we approve this variance, and this is a question for staff, if it's approved, then they can then come in and deed each 1.25 acre lot under each of their name? How does this process work?
Chair, Commissioners, that is correct. It would be, I think, a quick claim deed or some sort that would sit there and change it into two owners on two separate lots.
Okay. Mr. Chair, Commissioner, if I may, if the variance is approved, they will go through and replat this land, and during the replatting phase, they will create new deeds of transfer to their each individual names, however they choose, by quick claim, warranty deed, special warranty deed.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Mr. Chair, that's all my questions.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have questions? Commissioner Bruger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Portillo, think if I remember right, on both sides of your subject property, your grandfather deeded lots, 2.5 acre lots to other family members. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there's still vacant land, correct?
That's correct.
All right. You mentioned that you have no intention of selling this property and that this will be your forever home. Just from what I understand, anecdotal, there, some folks would worry that you would just list it for a realtor and sell it. So you're saying that that is not your intention, that you would be using this property to build your own homes? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Any idea in your dreams when you would initiate this process?
I'm hoping within the next year to establish a residence for my fiance and I.
Commissioner, for myself, I would be hoping within the next 5 years or so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes, I've got a question. I read in our report that both of you live with your father.
That's correct.
How long have you lived with your father? All your life?
Just about.
Just about. Well, that's commendable that you are in this area. And how many uncles and aunts live in that area? I saw this was a Portillo compound or subdivision or something, and all the names on the little surveys that I saw were all mostly Portillos. Are there anybody else that's not a Portillo in that area?
There's a couple, Commissioner, but there's numerous family members. As far as immediate family, my grandma still resides within 500 feet of our property, as well as my father and my uncle. And the lot to my left and our right that is next to us is both family owned as well.
And how long have you worked with the fire department?
I just hit 3 years.
And Miguel, how long have you worked for the city animal control?
Approximately 2 years, sir.
How many?
2 years.
2 years?
Yes, sir.
You know, my opinion is that we need young people like this to be in our community. And, you know, housing expenses property is very expensive. Housing is very expensive. Not only that, there's a critical shortage of affordable houses in this area. And I applaud that you're trying to stay in this area and work within the Santa Fe County community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Trujillo.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question for the two applicants. So if we approve this variance and the conditions, the first two, actually already sounds like you already applied with the first one. The second one would be pretty easy, but the third one, more importantly to me anyways, just so that you have an understanding, it says that an accessory dwelling unit on these lots shall be prohibited and noted on the final plat. And so under the current code, it allows a home of a certain size that you build, an accessory structure, dwelling which has a kitchen and somebody can functionally live in it as long as it's half the square footage. Are you aware you're giving up that right in this, or do you have any objection to that?
I am aware of that, and I don't have any plan of building a secondary dwelling for someone else to live in. It's strictly going to be for my family and I. The most I'd want to do is put a small shed or garage of some sort, but that's about it.
Okay, the reason why I say that is that I took a benefit of that in the Huaca Valley when I needed to have my mom or dad come live in Oxita. I was able to build an accessory dwelling on that property. And so I just want to let you know that, time evolves and you never know what situation you're going to be placed in. But if you're okay with the condition, I just want to let you know that I just wanted to hear what your thoughts were. Thank you.
Any other commissioners with questions? Commissioner Pava.
Yeah, I just want to thank the brothers for their presentation and the clarity and clarifications that you made, and you presented a compelling statements, both in the record to the hearing officer and in the staff report. And I would maintain that when I look at the variance conditions, that the extraordinary conditions, and in this particular case for this property, we have a housing affordability crisis in Santa Fe County and in the city. Our current new planning director knows that very well, having been the affordable housing planner for the city. We all know that. We read about it every day. I don't see that this is in any way contrary to the public interest, nor do I see that it is. Actually, I see that it is in keeping with the spirit of the Land Development Code and more specifically, the Sustainable Growth Management Plan, which is the resolution that provides the overarching spirit for why we do these things. And that's why we're a planning commission. So I appreciate my planning commissioner colleagues' questions on this because this is a difficult one, but this is why we're here as a planning commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Pava. Staff.
Chair, Commissioners, I just want to follow up on what Commissioner Pava said. The code doesn't allow us to support variances, but this would be a variance that the staff would support with the condition of no accessory dwelling units on there. Essentially, we are allowing them to put 2 homes on there. If they didn't split it, they would be allowed 2 dwelling units. So it's an even split without adding additional homes to it. And so if we had criteria that would allow us to support variances, this would be one that we supported.
Thank you very much. Any other questions of commissioners? I have just one question. The lot immediately to your east is owned by Carlos and Marcos Portillo. Are those your cousins?
That's correct.
Do you know, are they in a similar situation? So here we have, I think folks inheriting joint properties can lead to issues, like you guys have faced. Do you know what their intentions are?
I believe they are down the road wanting to do the same thing. From what they've told me, and my understanding is they don't have any intention of doing that in any near future, but they want to do so eventually down the road.
Okay, thanks. I just want to, land of Portillos, it looks like. Yeah, waiting to see what happens here. Yeah, well, thanks very much. And I just do want to, again, echo, I appreciate you guys coming in and, figuring out what the rules are to play by those rules. So thank you very much. Yes, Commissioner Bruger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one more question. So if this variance is not approved, what would both of you do with the property?
I would petition it and go to the BCC and present this case in front of them. And if not, from my understanding, I can take it to magistrate court and continue fighting it until it'll hopefully work out in my favor, in our favor.
That, sir, is an honest answer. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
It's better than a game of cards. Thanks.
We've closed the public hearing.
This is a public hearing, and I'm wondering, is there anyone in the audience or online who is interested in presenting before or after, presenting in opposition or in favor of this request?
Chairman, there's nobody online indicating they wish to speak.
Thank you.
Any others from the public?
Yeah, I don't see anyone else. Oh, sir, you're interested in? Please be sworn.
Yes. Paul Portillo, 1611 Ben Hur Drive, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87501.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I'm the uncle to James Jr. and Miguel Portillo. And, this was something that my family has envisioned. My mom and my dad with keeping the family together, okay? And, you know, I'm sure there's probably some questions about, you know, one of them was, you know, the cousins to the left. But, you know, this is a really, really strong knit family. And like my nephew pointed out before, it's very hard to get affordable housing here in Santa Fe. And that's one thing that my parents recognized, and they wanted to, you know, help them to be able to stay here in Santa Fe closer to the family, okay? And, you know, I think pretty much what I was going to say, you know, my nephew brought that up, so I don't think I need to speak anymore, other than, you know, I respectfully request, you know, that you guys do approve this variance, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Portillo. Anyone else wishing to speak on this? So we'll now close the public hearing, and what's the will? Oh, there is another person. I'm sorry. Please be.
I apologize. I should have gotten it.
That's fine. Please be sworn.
I do. My name is Arthur Eugene Portillo Jr., practically known as Gene Portillo, 86 North Fork, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87508. Good afternoon, good evening, Commissioner, Commission. I just wanted to state, like I said, my nephew did state everything that that we were going to say, and I just wanted to reiterate that, you know, I'm a 25-year county employee. I just retired 2 years ago from here. I was a code enforcement officer, inspector, and I know the job well. I know the county well, and our family is stuck here, and we want to stay together, and that's the whole reason why my parents, like he said, envisioned us to keep the property and everything together, all the family together, and it's just something that we want to, you know, grant his wish and keep everything together. And if you approve this, it would just help. My sons are involved as well. That's the property that you spoke of, Carlos and Marcos Portillo. They have the property next to them as well. And down the road, they're not prepared to do any of that right now. They're still, you know, living with us, and we help each other out. But eventually, they are going to want to, you know, do something on their own. But it's still way out of the way right now. But that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Thank you for your time, and appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Portillo.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to this variance request? Please be sworn. Thank you.
I do. My name is James Portillo. I live at 90 North Fork, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87507. Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is James Portillo. I live at 90 North Fork in Santa Fe County, neighbors to James and Miguel Portillo. I am in favor of the subdivision of the 2.5-acre lot. As we all know, it is very costly to live and raise a family, as my son said earlier, in today's world, and these young men want to reside on the property their grandparents gifted to them, as they did for me and my brothers and our families, with hopes to keep us all united on one family property. Now my sons, James and Miguel, have that same opportunity to do the same with their lives and families in the future. As we know, like I said, it's very costly to live in Santa Fe. Whether you buy or rent, it's outrageously expensive. They have a great opportunity to remain in Santa Fe County, where James is a first responder, as he said, and Miguel is with the animal control for the city of Santa Fe. Rather than them moving and living elsewhere, you know, where it's more affordable, they would like to stay here. Let's see. The family has worked very hard and invested a lot of money and time to get to where it's at right now with construction of the roads, the surveys, etc. The unity of our family staying together was very important to my parents, especially now since my dad passed away December 2024. Our mom isn't here because I'm here speaking on her behalf because she had a slight accident. She's not able to move very well. But she is in favor of this variance as well in the subdivision. As a grandparent who gifted this land to them, to her grandsons.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Is anyone else in the audience or online interested in speaking in favor or in opposition to this variance request? So I'll now close the public hearing. And commissioners, what's the will of the commission?
Mr. Chair, I just have a little bit of discussion here, just quickly. I know the applicant, I know the third staff recommendation is no accessory dwelling. I just want to point out is that, you know, down in the Pojoaque Valley, it was zoned at 3/4 of an acre, and they do allow accessory dwellings, and I put an accessory dwelling now on my property for both my mom and my father, because time goes on, you know, and once you give up that right, you give up that right. And so now I look at the density down there where you're a residence and an accessory dwelling on 3/4 of an acre, and this land is still 50% larger, and it doesn't influence the integrity of the neighborhood for these long-standing families, and it helps our family out a lot. And so if this is a family that's really sticking together and has that intention, and it sounds like it, I mean, I feel once you've given that up, it never comes back, and as they come to do these other properties at some point, it sounds like they will, but that's just my feeling. I just wanted to share that I certainly support this variance, but I do have heartburn with that number 3 only because I know these gentlemen are young and they look at it solely from these eyes at this point, but at one point 30 years goes very quickly and their parents have aged and maybe they need a hand or something along those lines, and so that's the part I have a little bit of heartburn with. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners or Commissioner Meyer?
Well, we could have a motion that removes item 3. Would that be something that we could do, right?
You can do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Done it before.
Any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Bruger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment that this case, at least for me, this is tough, that testimony's compelling. The code is the code now, and there's a reason that staff's recommending denial and the hearing officer recommended denial, following what code prescribes. To me, one other factor that's relevant to me is that there used to be a small lot family transfer program. And if I understand correctly, it went away when the SLDC was approved. So there used to be, but there isn't now. And it's hard sometimes to follow all these things, approval of a plan or a code as they go through. So it may not have been noticed, but that's pertinent. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion or? So what's the will of the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Gonzalez?
on case number 245300, James C. Portillo and Miguel Portillo applicants, I move to approve this variance.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I would like to add an amendment to that, if it's a friendly amendment, and that would be that with staff conditions of both 1 and 2.
So you would like to amend the motion to remove the no ADU, no accessory
to
dwelling
remove
structure.
condition 3. Just,
Condition
a motion
three.
was made without any staff recommendation, so I'm adding staff recommendations of 1 and 2.
So you're requesting to amend the motion. So do we have a second on that request to amend the motion that was made by Commissioner Gonzalez?
Can we do that?
Yeah. Yeah, is there a second to the,
Well, it could be considered a friendly amendment if Commissioner Gonzalez accepts it as such. If he
so,
doesn't
yeah.
accept it as
So
such.
Commissioner, will you accept this as a friendly amendment?
I will accept that as a friendly amendment.
So the motion as it exists is to approve the variance, striking condition 3, but imposing the other conditions from staff. Is there a second for that amended motion?
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Let's get a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, the variance request is approved. Thank you very much for presenting. Next, do we have any petitions from the floor? Okay, are there any matters from the commission? I have a matter from the commission. I am wondering when we would be expected to see the minutes from the last special meeting and the possible final order. Karen? Okay.
They will be emailed out to you also, because they are a very long document. And so I will get Dominic to send those out tomorrow so that y'all can start reviewing them.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate you getting those out so quickly. I really appreciate that your firm got those out so quickly. Any other matters from the commission? One more. Are we anticipating the final order from that meeting with those minutes to be on the next regularly scheduled, to be available on the next regularly scheduled?
Chair, that is correct.
Thank you very much. Matters from the attorney. Are there any matters? you'd like
Nothing
to-
this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Staff, anything that?
Chairman, there's no matters from staff.
Thank you. And so the next regularly scheduled meeting is March 20th. And I'll get a motion for adjournment. And a second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We're done. Thank you very much. And thank you all very much.